Hi there, dear friends. Kalidas here to offer the astrological news. Today we're going to be speaking about the science of Kriya Yoga and how it relates to the science of astrology or Jyotish. Paramhansa Yogananda came to the United States in 1920, and his primary purpose in coming to the West from the East, from India, was to share the sacred science of Kriya Yoga and to greatly aid in uniting the Eastern science of mysticism with the Western science of material efficiency. And Yogananda came to also show the similarities, the parallels in the teachings of Jesus, as well as the teachings of the great avatar, Lord Krishna, who is the Christ of India. Now, when Yogananda came, he was armed with this technique, Kriya Yoga, and he began to speak very strongly and amazingly to people about it. And he would say things like, one Kriya breath, which takes roughly 30 to 60 seconds, is equivalent to 1 year of natural, healthy human evolution. And in previous classes, we've talked about the chakras and the planets. So you can refer to that if you haven't seen that one, but the chakras are related to the planets out in space. For instance, the sun is here in your prefrontal cortex. The moon is behind in the back of the brain, related to the limbic system. Mercury is our throat chakra, our communicator, our messenger. The heart chakra is Venus, our sense of enjoyment, of love, of romance, and our seeking, our native hunger for bliss. Mars is the third chakra, our fire, our will. Second chakra is Jupiter. And then first chakra is Saturn. Second chakra, Jupiter, would be our creative energy, our creative intelligence. First chakra, Saturn, would be the planet of our security, our survival instinct, and the things that we feel we cannot live without. And then there is the breath. And the breath is kind of going along, circling the sun, very much like the solar system works. So you could think of your breath as the earth. And see, the earth isn't any one of the chakras. The earth is you, let's say, your consciousness, or the world consciousness. And when we do a Kriya breath, when we're working with the Kriya science, it is a way to bring the energy up to the sun and then back down to the base chakra. And it is a revolution of energy around this inner solar system that creates the 1 year of natural, healthy evolution that Yogananda said was equivalent to one Kriya breath. So there's a science behind what he said. It's not just an affirmation, but the point is to do the Kriyas well, and to do the Kriya Yoga practice with focus and devotion. And that will really begin to move that energy around the inner solar system to the point where we can practice Kriya and receive the results Yogananda promises of 1 year's natural, healthy evolution through one Kriya breath. He called it the airplane route to God. And it is related to astrology in a deeply intimate way. They fit together in a fascinating way. And as we pass through the constellations in the inner zodiac, all the way up to the constellation of Leo, and back down to the very base chakra, which would be the constellation of Capricorn, one of the Saturn, negative Saturn sign, we are learning to move our energy around the solar system, and we're doing that inside. Now, it takes a long time for it to happen outside. So if you've reached that point in your life where you really want to evolve fast towards the divine presence and reclaim the purpose, reclaim your divine birthright, which is the purpose of your existence, then investigate the science of Kriya Yoga, because it will do wonders for your spiritual life and your spiritual perception. And that is because it's very much related to the evolution of our universe. Now, the sun itself, up in the sky, that circles a dual sun, a great galactic center of cosmic consciousness, of bliss, of all knowledge. And as our sun guides our universe, as it rotates around the sun, towards this great galactic center, we as humanity evolve. And as that sun goes away from that great galactic center, we as humanity devolve. And this explains the scientific reasons for the anomalies such as the pyramids, things that were built with an intelligence far beyond what mankind currently possesses. We imagine it was done by thousands of slaves, but it's something else, something from a higher age. And we've come down into a dark age, and that's when Christ came and was crucified. And now we've begun to ascend again, and we've ascended into a higher age. Now that age is Dwapara Yuga, the age of energy. And Yogananda came right at the point when it was fully taking off into the new age. And he said, now mankind can understand on a large scale the science of Kriya Yoga and how it relates to the science of astrology. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Ananda Village birth chart, because it is the community that I live in, and hundreds of people, yogis and great souls that I know and am grateful to have found in this life are part of this community. And it was formed on July 4th, 1969. And it has a birth chart. And it just so happens that the birth chart of, sorry, my cat's trying to invade here. The birth chart of the United States is the same ascending sign as the birth chart of Ananda Village, which is a Sagittarius ascendant. That means that the constellation of Sagittarius was rising in the east at the time of Ananda's birth. And that means that the sign of Capricorn is the second house for Ananda. That would be material security, that would be material wealth. It includes money and resources of all types that we use here to be secure in the material plane. And that is where there's a purifying battle happening that will last likely until the year 2022. Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn is in Ananda Village's second house. So there's some energy there. It's a battle. It's going to likely be an uncertain time. However, Ananda Village was built with an attitude not of conservatism, but of generosity, of giving. From its very first day, it was built to be a place of giving techniques, of giving wisdom, of giving the teachings of a great enlightened master, of giving a place called community where people could come to live the spiritual life with support. It has always been a place of giving. And Swami Kriyananda said the day that we stop giving is the day that Divine Mother's grace will stop holding Ananda together on the material plane. So keep that in mind in your own personal life. Something as great as Ananda Village, a spiritual community of 250 people, was built with an attitude of giving, not of taking or hiding or conserving, but of giving. And this is the prosperity that eventually all of us will learn to attract. We focus on what we give. And I had a conversation with a dear friend who also happens to be a multimillionaire. I got to spend some time in a car with him, and it was just me and him. I'd picked him up from the airport. And I asked him, I said, I'd like to clarify something that I've been thinking about involving what is prosperity and how to attract it. And this great soul listened to my theory, which was that a lot of the younger people that I know seem to be struggling on a financial scale and learning about how to attract abundance, whereas a lot of the older people that I know seem to have attracted it, at least on a grander scale, like a larger bank account, for instance, or a home or a property tends to come to the older ones. And I said, is that simply because they've been putting out more energy for longer? Is it really true that the universe is like a bank account in that which we give will be able to withdraw when we need? And so the smart investor would begin making deposits of giving energy to the universe rather than focusing on making withdrawals all the time of taking. And he said, Kalidas, That's exactly right. That's exactly how we became what we are, and that's the law of prosperity. And I thought that was really encouraging for me, because it's not about focusing on what we keep and hoard. It's about giving freely and trusting that more will come. And this is the law of the universe, the law of karma. And it will test you sometimes, you give and you don't get. But keep giving. Prove it to yourself. There's only one way to know that this is true, and it is through your own experimentation. So especially during this time of financial uncertainty for Ananda Village, I'm sure it will affect many of the residents here. And the world at large, the USA is going to go through a gigantic challenge involving material security. It's already happening, but I have a feeling it's going to be in layers, and we've only just seen the first. Now, ultimately, in these ascending ages, we can rely on God to take these big, gigantic events that happen in society and use them to evolve humanity. That's guaranteed, because we are moving towards that galactic center I mentioned. So no matter what comes up, what wars or strife or famine or sickness or fear comes up, we are evolving, and we are sure to evolve through this. And the most certain way that you can guarantee that you will evolve through it is to focus on who you can help and what you can give in this time, not on what you don't have and what you need to acquire. That will come if you switch your attitude to that of generosity, rather than just taking toll on what I have, what I need, I. Think more in terms of how can I help? Who can I help? What can I offer? I offer these astrology satsangs, for instance. It's a service that I love to give, but I feel blessings in return, and I get lots of good feedback. You see, so it's a joy to give, and the more that we give, the more we discover that secret, that it is truly more blessed to give than to receive. So I ask you a question that a dear friend asked me on Sunday when he gave the Sunday service here at Ananda. He said, "How are you investing your energy?" It's a very important question, because the universe is a bank account, and you will be able to withdraw a healthy, happy relationship from it, should that be your desire, if you begin loving people and giving friendship to them. You will be able to attract abundant finances from the universe, if that be your desire, if you begin giving to those who are less wealthy than yourself. Focus on what you can deposit into your own bank account. How are you investing your energy? And this would be an important thing for Ananda in general at this time, because Saturn and Jupiter will go through that second house and do some cleaning. And it was 28 and a half years ago at this time that Ananda had entered into one of its biggest challenges in its existence, and that was the lawsuit. And it most certainly threatened the financial and material security of Ananda Village and Ananda worldwide. So we're there again. The good news is there's a whole lot of service to do. We have a lot to do. Ananda is very busy, even at this time, even more busy. And there's 3 planets at this time in Ananda's house of service, and they are really rockin' planets. There is the Sun in Taurus, there is Venus in Taurus, and there is Mercury in Taurus. 3 strong planets. It's a very artistic conjunction. The Venus is your heart, it's your love, it's your enjoyment and your aspiration. And then Mercury is your throat chakra. It's your desire to communicate what you are inspired to communicate. And then lastly is the Sun, the spiritual eye. So there's a very good energy in Ananda's house of service at this time in Taurus. If you're a Taurus ascendant, the stars are very much in your favor at this time. If you're a Virgo ascendant, this will make Taurus this great planetary conjunction happening in your 9th house. So if you're a Virgo ascendant, now is an excellent time to deepen your meditation and to find new ways in which you can minister your truth to the world, in which you can share the teaching that you follow with those who would be receptive. It's a house of ministry, the 9th house. For the Virgo ascendant, your 9th house is filled with beneficial planets at this time. So try to go deep in your spiritual life. Write down the kind of things you perceive at this time so you can use them later when there isn't so many great planets in your 9th house, because everything's always changing. So, those are just a couple of the signs that stand out to me. But Ananda's is service and healing, and that's a lot what Ananda will focus on, I think, in the next couple of years, is a healing service to the world. And we're going to be very busy and focused on this. That's the 6th house in Ananda's chart. And Ananda was born with Venus in Taurus. It's a very beautiful position. Like I said in another satsang, it's the birth of Krishna was with Venus in Taurus, with the moon rising next to that beautiful star of Venus. And Ananda just happens to be in its Venus Mahadasha. A Mahadasha is a planetary period of time in which that planet will be the most dominant and most representative of that organization or of that person. And Ananda being in its Venus Dasha is a time for it to be creating beauty. And since it has Venus in the house of healing, and it's very well placed, it's also a time for Ananda to be focusing on helping to heal the world. And looking at Ananda Village's chart, I can't tell you how promising it is. Ananda's going to do so much great things for this world. For instance, in 2033, Ananda will come out of the Venus Dasha into the Sun Dasha. And at that point, Ananda will have 7 years of glory, I'm certain. And that is the spiritual eye. And in the Ananda chart, it rules the 9th house of grace and good fortune. So in 2033, Ananda will go into 7 years of a very, I bet it will very much begin to grow in popularity in the sense of being able to affect the masses. And in 2074, I'm sorry to jump that far ahead, but I had to just look into Ananda's most important influential dasha of its lifetime thus far. Being a Sagittarius ascendant, Ananda would be a Jupiterian community. That's the ruler of Sagittarius. And Ananda will enter its Jupiter Dasha in 2074. So that will be in 54 years. I don't know if I'll still be alive, but I look forward to you hopefully being alive for it and seeing what a great 16 years awaits Ananda Village at that time, because it could very well at that time fulfill some of the great promises that were made about spiritual community and the future of our planet. So we're in an amazing century. This 100 years will probably be so very historical. Who knows what's happening now? We're not meant to know, but we're in the midst of a deep transformation of society. That includes Ananda Village. It's going to change a lot. And it will go into the Sati Sati period in 2023, which means that Ananda will begin changing in some way in a few years. And it will probably be a very good thing. When Saturn, the planet that causes this cycle I mentioned, Sati Sati, when Saturn sees that something is dharmic, something is pure, something is dedicated to the truth and working selflessly to share it for the benefit of others, Saturn will strengthen that security, the first chakra of that organization. So at this time, that's what's happening also, is we are being strengthened at our root chakra. And I mean Ananda Village in general, the security of our unit. And this also applies to the United States, except in this case, the United States is not in its Venus Dasha, like Ananda is. It's a better period for Ananda than it is for the US, which is a Rahu Dasha. Very unstable, most certainly going to go through a gigantic transformation. And that's because the United States was born with Rahu in its 8th house of death, of rebirth, and of transformation. And the United States was born with its moon in the house of free will, of freedom. Here it's a free country, and that's not going to change. The horoscope is a position of the planets that in some cases is predictable. In the sense of having a 3rd house moon, the United States will always have a passion, an undeniable passion for free will, for free speech, for free religion, and for freedom of exploration of life. That will always be true. And if something does come that threatens that security, well, the time that would be predictable would be now. Now that the United States is entering into its own moon period. It's called Sadi Sati. I mentioned it about Ananda Village's chart, but the United States entered into it in January. It has a different moon than Ananda does. So what I'm saying is that the United States is already in this transformation, and it will get quite intense in 2023. I'm certain of it. And in 2025, a lot will be clear. A lot more will be clear, especially when May comes. But that's 5 years away, and I'm sitting here talking in front of my phone, in front of my house, and I want to give you practical things, not just wait 5 years. So let's read a little bit from Yogananda's teaching, this great book. It's called How to Awaken Your True Potential. This is something that we can use, a quote from Yogananda that we can use to deepen our meditations so that we can get in touch more with our own sun, the guiding light of our own inner solar system. The more energy we bring to this point with devotion, the more grace in our consciousness we will be able to draw of insight, of attunement to our own natural life path. And also, we'll also be able to develop intuition that will help us to help others in their times of need. So here's Yogananda's advice on meditation for the day. If we meditate on our blessings, on what we have to be thankful for, rather than upon the trials, ills, and worries that beset or disturb us, we shall begin to know God. This is a very simple statement, but quite profound to meditate on. He says, if we meditate on our blessings, on what we have to be thankful for, rather than upon the trials, ills, and worries that beset or disturb us, we shall begin to know God. This is the way to meditate, is to be in joy, to think of the things that are beautiful. There is more good than bad. We are innately good. Why would we seek to be rich? Why would we seek to have an easy life? Why would we seek to connect in love with a partner and create a family on earth full of joy and creative discovery? That's because we know that we're made from the blissful power of God, and we're here in a world that enforces a dualistic experience, and it confuses us. We say, hey, I'm made for joy. Why does today have to be so hard? Why do I have to be in so much trouble all the time inside, in such a bad mood, when I'm made of bliss? The goal is to be in joy now. And Yogananda also said that when you have learned to be happy in the present moment, you are on the path to God. The solution is to be happy now, to affirm joy, to focus on the blessings in your life, and to not feel so trapped in your mind with all the negative perception. So if you find negative perception in your mind, or if your perspective is hurting your heart, the way that you look at the world, it's not actually the world's fault. It's your job to change your consciousness. And this is what Yogananda advises, that we focus on our blessings rather than the worries that beset us. And I'm going to read one more thing from Yogananda ji. And he says that love causes God to surrender himself to the devotee. Love causes God to surrender himself to the devotee. Remember that next time you're meditating and you feel restless because you're thinking about the day ahead, and maybe you had too much coffee before your meditation, or just feeling distracted. Remember these words: love causes God to surrender himself to the devotee. There's many stories that exemplify the power of loving God, the great grace that comes to us when we learn how to offer our love to God. Living in spiritual community, I've been blessed to hear many, many stories of grace and good fortune that come to those who dedicate their lives to expressing love for God, not just inwardly, but outwardly in all creation, in all people, especially in those people who challenge you, those people who debate you, who insist on being right and you being wrong. Those are the ones to really practice on. God-given people in your life. He's given them to you because they are harder to love, and He wants your love to grow so that you can find Him. Meditation is complete relaxation, the only way to know God. You can do everything else but meditate, and you will never find that joy that comes when the thoughts are silent. He says, you may ask, how can I be sure there is such a joy as you describe? This is what Yogananda says. This is my testimony. If you practice meditation every day deeply and consistently, you will find ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new joy within you. With practice, it will stay with you in activity and in silence alike, even in sleep. It is a joy that will constantly guide you to right action in everything and will respond to your prayers. And then he follows, this again is my testimony. Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, he says, this is my testimony. Having reached that joy, you will find that other desires become small in comparison. Your consciousness will expand. The world, you will stand unshaken amidst pulverizing trials. The whole world will not be able to lure you to forsake that bliss. You will enjoy all of life in that bliss. This is the result of focusing on the inner sun through the science of Kriya Yoga. As our outer sun guides us to the great galactic center in our ascending age of enlightenment, we will all experience evolution. But if we tune in with that inner sun, we can speed this process up greatly. And if we remember that God surrenders Himself to our love, Yogananda says, love causes God to surrender Himself to the devotee. So remember to bring your love to God who resides here in you. And right now on the planet, we have some very strong beneficial energies affecting us. That would be Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Taurus, a very beneficent energy. And then we have Saturn conflicting with Jupiter in Capricorn, a sign of organizations, a sign of structures and systems of various types. And that battle will most certainly bring purification and change. And it being in the second house of the United States, it very much has to do with our security. Where do we find it? It could mean a whole reboot of the system, for all I know. I don't know. Lastly, when we begin to follow that inner sun, we ourselves grow in the ability to adapt to any situation, meaning attunement. The ability to enter into any unpredictable situation and know what to do. That can only be known in the moment when the situation comes, with a calm heart and an uplifted gaze. But ultimately it can give us the power to work through and transcend our karma. So what else did I want to say? I know there was one more thing. Well, I can't remember it right now, but if we focus on these things that we've spoken about today, the material security being guaranteed if we focus on giving, putting our attention at the spiritual eye, and if we have Kriya Yoga, seeing it as this inner evolutionary process in which we offer our life to the Divine Sun, and then we bring that grace back down into our life. These are effective techniques, and I'm sharing them because the world at this time is certainly in a crisis, but there's also a lot of good and growth and expansion to tune into. So don't get caught in the anger or the debates or the darkness of any type, or hating another human being, because if you do, you'll notice only your own shadow. You won't be able to change them. The struggles we have with other humans and their points of views reveal our own work to be done. And when we do that work, we'll see that we no longer have to struggle with such conundrums anymore. This is transcending your karma. It's encountering the difficulty external and using it to change yourself inwardly. That's the secret of changing your magnetism. Kriya Yoga will help you greatly in this, as well as your devotion to God. So God bless you, and thank you for joining me today. It's a joy to share, and I look forward to being with you again very soon. Okay, bye-bye.